Hey, this is WhyBeAre with Automation, the car company Tycoon game, and today we're going to make a car inspired by a car that's going to come out in 2016, supposedly. It sounds like it's going to come out, but it might not also. It's one of those things where I'm not sure. Hopefully it does come out because it sounds like it'll be a really cool car. Now, I'm not going to tell you what car this is, and I'm not making an exact duplicate of the car. I'm going to let you try to guess what the car is all on your own, and then at the very end of the video, I'll tell you what the car was that was the inspiration for this video was. So since it's coming out in 2016, we're going to put the year to 2016. We'll put hatchback bodies on because that's what we want, and it should be from the last 10 years, which gives us one body option. So we'll use that one. Now, for the actual body, we have the hatchback and the not so hatchback. It is a hatchback, so we're going to choose that. However, it's a two-door hatchback. It's not a four-door. So you just have to imagine that these rear doors do not exist. They're not there. Pretend they're not. As for the actual shape of the body, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but first, I need to do the whole chassis. So it's going to be a monocoque chassis because who uses a ladder chassis on a small car nowadays? That's just crazy. Or it's probably really a semi-monocoque, but that's just splitting hairs, and it's not an option, so we don't worry about that. The material is probably AHS steel is what they use, like the equivalent of what they use. They don't use the old style, just steel where it weighs so much. They use probably that kind of steel in real life. The engine placement, now this is definitely the same. It's a front transverse engine, which is not something I would normally show interest in. But this car is an interesting front transverse vehicle. This front suspension is probably going to be a strut. The rear suspension probably going to be a multi-link. I say probably because I don't think any of this has been confirmed, but it's suspected. Panel material, I'm going to choose aluminum just to make the car kind of fit the right weight. I don't think it's exactly aluminum panels, but it makes the car the right amount of weight probably to match the car I'm trying to make. Now we're going to go back to the body so I can fix up these fenders over here. I have to make them pretty big because I want pretty big tires on this thing, and I have to go back and forth between there and there to actually get these the right width. I want them to be 255 millimeters wide for the max width. So right there you can see max tires rear 255 mm. So those ones are good. And now I gotta do the same to the front. Now you may be wondering, why am I doing 255 millimeters? Because the car is based on another car, which has a maximum width of 235 millimeters, I believe, from the factory. And then the car has been widened from that version by like a ½ inch on both sides, which is about 20 millimeters. So I'm assuming that the car would then have tires to fill that out, which means the max tire width would be 255 millimeters, which is exactly what we have it set to now. As for the roofline, you want it to be pretty sloped down and then pushed back kind of like that. We don't want this sticking out a lot. We want it pushed down a lot. And even this is a little too steep, even if I can kind of lean it in without ruining the body lines entirely. Something more like that, but it doesn't quite look right. That back end does definitely not match up, but I don't think there's much I can do about it. And I just thought of something. There's no gas caps in this game. I guess just a random thought. Ain't no gas caps around in this thing. There's none. So we can't have gas caps. Anyways, the rest of the body. The front, I'm going to make this thing really straight at the front because I think that's kind of what the real car is like. It's pretty flat right there. And then I'm going to make this part kind of match that so it's more like, something like that or so. I think that kind of matches up, maybe a little less like that. That looks pretty close to what I'm envisioning. This one, we could just move it back to pretend there's not another door. I think everything else is pretty good though. We can move that in a little. That is the basic body shape, and now we can go ahead and try to fill it in with all the crazy stuff which I suck at using. So I guess we'll just go in order of the things that are listed. The first thing is headlights, and the closest looking headlights are probably these ones in terms of shape, so I'll just go ahead and add those. And that angle is way too steep. I think it's more of kind of like that on the car that I'm remaking, inspired by. It's not a remake, it's an inspiration. It doesn't really go all the way to the wheel like that. I mean, even if it did, that looks weird. Like that looks pretty good. Next is taillights, so we'll just keep going in order. And taillights, I honestly do not remember what they look like really. And I don't think any of them would really match anyway, so I'm just going to say these ones. These ones will work great. And I could just place them like that. I think they're somewhere like there. That looks terrible. What if I rotate them? Not like that. Like that. Looks a little bit better. Is that? Oh no, I can see straight through the car. That's not a good position. That's kind of a realistic position. How unfortunate. How unfortunate. I guess we won't use those lights just because they do that. I just don't like the glitchiness. So it's like, ew, 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 ew. No, 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 no glitchy. So let's see. What if we use the... Nah. Like, none of these really work. We'll just say, how about we just slap some of these on it? Okay, that does it too. Fine. We'll just use the other ones then, because all of them are going to be glitchy, apparently. Just throw them on right there. Rotate them the other way. I like them that way better. Just a little bit. And I can kind of... Whoa, that got really bad right there. Just a sliver down the whole body. I was going to say try to match it up right here, but apparently that's a bad thing to do, so we'll just... I should really just stop touching these lights. Like, just say, okay, we're done. That's really what I should do. It's just like, lights are done. I don't even remember what they look like in the real car for sure, so it doesn't really matter. They look dinky, though. Like, in just terms of looks, they look really small. That looks a bit better. Totally not what the car looks like, so don't take those into consideration. Indicators. Indicators? Was there indicators on the... I think there are indicators on the front. I want to say there was, but I'm not 100% sure on this. But I think there was, like, indicators somewhere in the front. And by the way, I am trying to, like, pull up a picture every now and then, but I like, have one picture. It doesn't have that. So I was like, I don't know. I have one picture from the front, one from the rear. It's like, I can't tell. I think it had indicators, like, somewhere around here, though. Or was it before the door? I think it's before the door. Like, there. I'm guessing. Don't use that for... Don't use the looks to figure out what car it is. How about that? Just say that. Because I am not good at making a car that looks anything like what I expect it to look like. Alright, so let's see. Put a grill like this. Flip it over and make it big. Not that big. Not that big. Should be good. Get a little taller. And then we want some vents on this thing. Square-ish vents, maybe. Maybe these ones. We can stretch them out and they will work pretty good. Gotta flip them, though. Not like that. Not like that. Like that. There we go. That's about the shape I want. We're going to make them nice and tall. Not that badly proportioned, though. So we go ahead and make it that proportion. Shrink it down. And these vents really go out there. We do something like that, and then we could fill the rest of the shape in with this. That's a rough way of making the way it looks. Although I think there's way too much gap on the bottom. Let me lower these both. Let me rotate this one too so the gap is a little bit less. So it's more consistent in a straight line. Like that. That looks pretty good. And that's roughly what I have the front looking like in my picture. So that's good enough. At least part of it. The next grill is the upper grill. It has an upper grill too. Weird, isn't it? And put that right there. And we're just going to go whoop. And that's pretty close to what we just need to do. Well, different color. That color sucks. How about this color? There we go. Black grill. There we go. Make it nice and long. And then a little bit taller. A little bit longer. A little bit taller. So it looks something like that. Laying it up with the lights a little bit better. And then we could go to the next one, which is wing. And it does have a wing, but I don't think this wing will really match up with it well. Like, the wing it has kind of hangs off the car, and I'm not sure if you could really do that. Well, I'm at a bad camera angle, so let me switch the camera. I think it's this one is the one that's good for this. There we are. So I'm going to say put the wing right... Yeah. For this one, for the game, you can't really hang the wing off the way it does, because in the real one, it kind of has the wing, like, over here on the... Like, covering the glass more than the back of the hatch, but whatever. That makes it look a little bit better. Like, closer, I should say. But it looks terrible, really. Nothing I can do about that. I can't seem to get it anything but terrible. But it does have a very small spoiler. I should say spoiler. I said wings because it says wings, but in terms of aerodynamics, I'm pretty sure it's a spoiler. Anyways, that's that. The next is handles, and I honestly have no idea what the handles look like because like I said, the angles of pictures I have don't really work for that. So I'm just going to throw a handle right about there and call it good. I'm not going to put a handle on the back because I'm imagining this as a two-door car. So those back doors don't exist. As for the hood, it just stays like that. That's fine. Like, that looks good enough to me. I'm not going to put no extra bumps on it or anything because it doesn't have any bumps on the real car, really. Like, it's pretty smooth just like that one. The exhaust, we got to add those. This one actually has a cool exhaust. It has exhaust where it's double tips in the middle, like that. Pretty good. Is it just me or does that look off-center? Like, I swear that looks off-center, but it literally can't be off-centered because it's symmetrical. Whatever. Lips. It does have lips. Although, I think they're like carbon fiber lips. They look a lot cooler that way. Oh well. We'll just make them red. That would be a cool little feature, though, just having the lips a different color. That'd be nice. Now, I know it has it on the front. On the rear, it has like a diffuser, I think. So, no diffuser button, so we'll just leave it like that. Looks kind of empty. We could add some things there. It does have vents, actually, on the back. So we could go ahead and throw some vents on it. I don't know if any of the vents will really match up. I think maybe if I had these. Those are kind of close, but not really because they're not squared off enough. Like I said, don't use this as reference. I'm just kind of just saying what would look like similar. And that's similar. Very vaguely similar. Close enough. You know, I don't really care. Like, I'm just messing around mostly with these looks. And then we also need a license plate thing, which is under grills. And I believe it's this one, and this is good for license plates. Yes. Let me make it bigger. Like that. We can put a license plate right there. I can throw it on the front too. Say this is a California car. It needs a front license plate. So you say, okay. And you put the license plate in between the two grills. So that way you're not blocking airflow. Because in my real car, the RX-8, the stock place for the license plate is terrible. It blocks off the radiator and all that. And it runs the car hotter, actually. So I don't run front license plates, even though it's totally illegal. I don't care. Like, I want my car to be cool. So now this car is pretty ugly because I was trying to duplicate things in a very unusual fashion where it isn't exactly possible. That's just like, maybe you can tell what car this is based on that, but probably not. It's just, I don't think it's going to be easy to figure out what car this is. There's some badges on it. The badges there, I think there's one right here. And then there's also one back here. That's just the way it is in real life, so that's the way I'm putting them there. Also, I think it has a strip of LEDs right here for a light or something, but can't do that. I tried before. I remember. It didn't work. All right, so next is the drive type, and it is a transverse all-wheel drive. That's what it starts. Now it starts to get interesting, right? It goes from a kind of weird-looking economy car to sounding interesting because we got that all-wheel drive. And for the color in all the concepts, it's kind of like a silverish. So I'm trying to get it to be similar to that, like about there. It's not quite white, but it's silverish like that. That is the color you usually see in the concepts. That's the color I'm going to use. Now onto the engine. Now here's where things get a little fun. So the engine in the car is definitely going to be an inline 4 from another vehicle that the manufacturer makes. And I believe it's a cast iron block, and I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't actually look it up for certain, but I'm like, I think it was cast iron, yeah. The bore and stroke, though, I do know the exact numbers for those. The bore is 82.5, the stroke is 92.8, and these are the exact numbers that the manufacturer uses in an engine that's in another one of their cars, which is said to be the exact same engine that's going to be in this car with some strengthened internals. And the head and valves is a dual overhead cam with 4 valves. I think the head material was aluminum, and it definitely has variable valve stuff. So I'm going to put that to on. The crank, I don't know if it's going to be forged or cast iron. I'm going to guess forged would probably be a possibility, but for my vehicle, I'm putting in just cast iron because I think it'll be able to hold up. Con rods and pistons, none of this has really been said what this vehicle is going to have. So I'm just putting in what I think will work for what I'm going to do with the vehicle, which would be some forged H-beams and some forged pistons. Those should be able to hold up to what I'm making. The compression and the cam profile and all of this is just going to basically be me tuning the engine to reach the same peak horsepower that the car is said to have. So I'm going to, for example, just take the compression way down, leave the cam profile the way it is, raise the variable valve lift profile a bunch because this engine is going to putting out a lot of power from a small size. The cams, or the variable valve timing, I'm going to put it to all cams. And now we get to the turbo. And we have to turbo this thing in a way that makes sense, which is easier said than done. Because no matter what I do with a turbo, I can never seem to get it to spool up fast enough like they do in real cars. Like a 2015 car that's a small engine with a turbo, they always seem to be able to spool up really fast and get on the like peak power at like 3,000 RPMs or less, it seems like. And, well, just looking at the stock configuration right here, it's hitting peak power at 5,500 RPM. And even with a ball bearing, it's still at 4,500 RPM. So the torque curve is going to be totally different because I just want to get the peak power. And for now, I'm just going to put the turbos to have a large air-to-air intercooler to make sure they're cool. And I'll put it to the race preset. I'm not going to keep it there, but that's just to get us started. The fuel system is probably going to be a direct injection system. I don't know if it's a single or throttle per cylinder, but in automation, a single direct injection will only give us 217 max horsepower. So we need to do a throttle per cylinder setup. The intake, let's just say performance. Again, a lot of this stuff hasn't really been said. It might even be a race performance for all I know. I mean, a race intake for all I know, but I'm going with performance to be safe. The fuel type, we're going to go with super, because when you're making this much power out of an engine, engine this small, that's usually what you use. I'm going to go ahead and raise the fuel mixture up so we hopefully don't knock. And I'm raising the RPMs a bunch. The actual car is probably not going to have a red line that high, but I think I'll need something that high to actually be able to hit the power I want. And I didn't touch the, because I'm worried about that later, the ignition timing. Now, for the headers, we're just going to do the only option we have. We'll throw in a bypass valve just in case it makes things faster, and I'll make the exhaust huge for now. I'll come back to that later. And for the catalytic converter, we always do high flow 3-way on a high performance vehicle and 2 reverse flows. That's pretty much the standard to use on a high performance vehicle, which is what I enjoy making. And now we get our first dyno run, which looks promising because this chart goes up pretty high. How high will you go? Get on that boost. Oh man, that's kind of a steep boost right there. I heard a boom. Ooh, no, my connecting rods. So my connecting rods blew up. So I gotta go ahead and switch those out. I could go I-beam steel, which still isn't strong enough. So I need I-beam titanium to be able to hold up. And then the pistons aren't doing well either. So I could put lightweight forged in there, and that'll hold up a little bit better. So now the engine won't blow up. Huge improvement. Reliability went from like 49 to 66. Weight went down as well. And don't need to worry about the crank. It's totally fine with cast iron. Yeah, it weighs a little bit more, but not a lot. It's like, what, 4 pounds? We could take that. What can we do though? I want to have 420 horsepower. And you could be like, oh yeah, WhyBeAre 420, ha ha ha. Actually though, the real car is said to have 420 peak horsepower, it sounds like. Which is why I'm using that number. And it's just kind of funny, isn't it? And the manufacturer, they made vehicles in the past that were kind of related to that. Like, they're very hippie-ish vehicles from the olden days. I'm giving you a big hint with the buses they made. I just basically told you the manufacturer. All you got to figure out is the car. So anyways, I got to tune this turbo. I don't like the way it's coming on. It's like, boost. It comes on really hard. I want to try to make it more gradual, which actually makes the car slower overall, but easier to drive. So I'm going to say increase the AR ratio a bunch. I think, yeah, increasing it a bunch kind of makes it a little more gradual. And then if I reduce the turbine and compressor size, I don't think I'll have any issues with hitting the same amount of boost, but it should make it a little smoother. Like, I'm just looking at this graph, and that looks a lot easier to drive. It's kind of like a gradual up and over. Like, it doesn't seem as boost and then power. So it's slower, but easy to drive. And for a street car, that makes sense. And back here on compression and all that, I said I'd come back to that later. Let me see if I can get the cam profile to kind of make it a little smoother or not. Or a little bit better looking even more. I guess that is a little more gradual. Oh, no, it's not. It's more gradual like that. I mean, it's about the same. It just depends where the big change is. Like, it goes whoop. That looks pretty easy. Like, it's an easy slide versus a drop and then you slam on your butt and you get sore. That looks easy. Gonna go ahead and raise the compression a bunch. I don't want to... Well, actually, what I should do, I should lower the fuel mixture to be a reasonable amount, like 13.5 is the default, so we'll lower it to that. And then I'm going to raise the compression. 9.0 should work for now. Boost. We could just raise the boost a little bit. And then we hit 420. That's the number I wanted, so I'm happy there. Can we lower the fuel mixture without reducing the power? No. Okay, I'm gonna reduce the fuel to there, and then I'm gonna increase the compression by 1. Okay, 1 more, and now we are knocking. So that's no good. So instead, we'll increase the ignition timing by 1, And one more, and we're knocking. So we're going to have the fuel mixture running at 13.7, which gets us the 420 horsepower that I wanted. And I could even eke out a little bit more out of the engine if I wanted to by increasing the ignition timing a little bit. But that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted 420. That's it. I guess I get a little bit of economy this way, so I'll keep it there. But again, a nice gradual setup. So just going over everything again. Inline 4, cast iron, just like the real car is going to probably have. Same exact capacity as probably going to have. Dual overhead cams and 4 valve, which is what it's going to probably have. Head material, I think it was going to be aluminum, but I'm not sure on that. It's probably going to have some sort of variable valve technology. Crank, no idea. I just put what was convenient for me. Con rods, pistons, no idea. Variant capacity, kind of irrelevant because I didn't touch it. Compression and all that, I would think the real one's going to have a little bit higher compression ratio. And it's going to be able to get on the power a lot sooner than mine. And again, I just can never seem to get the torque to peak early enough where you still get a lot of torque out of an engine. It just doesn't seem to work out that way. It's like the turbos in the game are just the older turbos. They're not as efficient as a new turbo is that they make in like cars nowadays. All the turbo setup is just kind of me clicking buttons until it looked like a smooth curve here to make it easy to drive. Direct injection is what it's probably going to have. 12 per cylinder just because it's needed. Intake performance just because it's a performance vehicle. And fuel type, the max, because it's a very high output engine for the size. Like 210 horsepower per liter. That means each cylinder is making over 100 horsepower. That's one of the reasons I really hope this car makes it into production. It's just how insane it is like that. Like this car, I don't think it'll actually make it to production, honestly. But if it does, I will be so happy. And I'm looking right here. If I reduce the exhaust diameter to be a logical size, it ends up choking up one of the turbo parts. So I want to have a huge exhaust just to make sure I don't choke up that turbo part. In fact, if I put the exhaust to 5 inches, that keeps making it get more power. I'm not going to do that, though. I want exactly 420. That's the exact number. Like, the fact that it has 420 horsepower is in its name. I have to have 420. So anyways, let's go ahead and do a run of the engine. It's a pretty fancy engine, I think, but it should do what its job is. That seemed to work pretty well, like in terms of how fast it seemed to step up through the amount of torque. It was nice and gradual. Now, I wish I had more low-end torque, but I just can't seem to tune an engine to have a lot of low-end torque unless I make a big engine. But I'm making an engine that's based on the real dimensions, so it's like I can't do that. Anyways, on to trim. We're going to put a sequential double-clutch 6-speed in the car because that's what it is probably going to have. It might also end up getting a different setup. It might end up getting a manual transmission as an option or both. I mean, you can't have both in one car, obviously, but you might have the option of either one. Spacing, I'll throw it up a lot because it seems like usually the higher the spacing, the better things work out for me in terms of performance. So we'll say about there. And I picked 174 for the top speed because that is the speed that I found listed on the internet. Differential, I think it has an electronic limited slip. At least it does. I think it does in the lower end model. So I'm going to put that in. And the power distribution is like dynamic. So I'm just going to say do a 40-60 split because that generally works out okay. But that's no way related to the real one. The tires, we're going to put sport compounds on this because it's a 400 horsepower sports car. You put sport tires on that. Rim diameter, we're going to put 19s on it because that's what the concept car had. Tire width. Now, the car that the concept car was based off of had 235 millimeters. Then the concept car was widened a little bit, and that's why I made the body be able to fit 255 because I'm assuming it would have something like that on it. And the rim material, I'll put alloys, and I'll pick these ones because these ones are similar to the real wheels that are used. As for the wheel diameter, I'll worry about that later because I don't feel like trying to think about that one. Next is the brakes, and for this one, supposedly it's going to have improved brakes. What that means, I can't tell you. So for me, I'm just going to say throw some vented discs on it with 2 pistons. That usually is good enough to stop most vehicles without any issues. Throw it to 300 millimeters for now, and I'll tone it down later. And for the back, we'll have 1 pistons at, and I'm putting the pad type up a little bit, as you see, because this is a sports car, not comfort car. And again, for the size, though, I'll put it to like 285, a little bit smaller. Those are just placeholders for now. Fine tune that later on. Under trail, I'm going for downforce. Just max out the downforce. No active wings or active cooling or anything like that, because the real car probably doesn't have that. And cooling airflow, that's way too much cooling. We don't need that. We only need 250 kilojoules to cool this engine. So let's make it where it gets 300 to make sure it stays nice and cool. I always do a little more. Plus, then you got to give some to the brakes. So then up it 1 more. And that's the amount of cooling we'll have. The seats, I think it's going to be a 4-seater, so we'll throw 4 seats in. Now, this car, I believe in the concept, it had like Recaros in the front, which are sport seats. So I'm going to put that as the chair type. I don't know if they're actually Recaros, but they look kind of like them. Anyways, the entertainment, I'm going to put standard. Because to me, luxury is like the Bentley and Maybach. And then you have premium, which is like the Mercedes-Benz. And then you have standard, which is kind of like what this one is at. To me. Like, I don't know if that's for sure or not, because I've never actually owned a car from this manufacturer, but this is why I always kind of envision them being. I'm going to put all the assists on it because I'm pretty sure the car I'm basing this on would have all of those. The safety, we're going to put standard. I mean, it's not necessarily a super safe car, but it's about the average for the 2010s, I would think. The springs, I'm going to put active sport because the real car has one of those things where you can say, I want it to be in sport mode or not sport mode, comfort mode, all that. So I'm going to say put it to active sport because I'm assuming that it means like active as in you can change it. Same with the dampers. I'm going to put semi-active on the dampers. So that means hopefully that you are able to choose how strong they are and all that. Sway bars, no option there. And I'm going to put race for the preset because that's one of the options. And I'm going to do a test track run in a minute, and I wanted to be able to have a good suspension to be able to go around a test track fast. So the test track I always use is the airfield, so we're going to go ahead and do a run on that. And the time it gets is in a 1:26.22, which is, that's really good. Like, this is a super hack. Like, you got hot hatches, and then you got this, which is like a super hatch. Not a super car, it's a super hack. And I think that car turned out pretty well. I mean, it does a standing kilometer in 23.7 seconds. That's good. I think the gearing's holding it back a little bit, plus the downforce maybe. I think I can make that even faster because I didn't really tune for that. That seems to be pretty good. And I'm looking at it going around these corners. It seems to pull a good amount of G's. So it has enough grip to get around them nicely. I really like the way it turned out, man. It worked good. And the quarter mile is in under 13 seconds. That's not shabby. Pulling over 1.2 G's in that corner. That is a grippy car. I mean, it should be because I put the race suspension on it, but I'm still impressed right there. Now I'm just going to let it finish up the lap because I like watching it. 1.3. I wasn't actually looking at the numbers before. I was just looking at the little dots. I don't know how high it got before, but that's a good number. How many can it do braking? I might need to put bigger brakes on it. Ooh, nice. Negative 1.6 G's on the braking. Oh my goodness, they're like way off the road though. If you look on the little car, they just drove through the dirt or something. Shortcut. And across the line. How many G's can you get from acceleration? 1 G. It hits 1 G in accelerating. That's some good acceleration. All right. So that's really the car without any fine tuning. We can do some quick tuning. I'm going to lower this, see if that does. There we go. I did manage to increase the 0 to 62 time by a little bit, so I'll go ahead and take advantage of that. And the top speed, I mean, the estimated top speed is only 152, so I don't know why I had the gearing to be so long. Although it seems like the shorter gearing is not so beneficial. I mean, we get 21 miles per gallon, right? And then this one we had 21.9 with less wheel spin and the same 0 to 60 times. So I'll keep it at that. Plus, like I said, that's what the real car uses. Or it says it should use. The wheel diameter, I said I was going to come back to that later. I'm going to make these like rubber bands. Because it seems like whenever you throw rubber bands on a car in this game, it does really good on the track. Just to see how much better of a time does it get from just a small tweak in gearing plus rubber bands on the tires. It makes it into the 125. That's a third of a second chopped off right there. That's nothing to laugh. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a good, significant change. I bet if I was to say, you know, put a 9-speed in here, it'd be even better, but I'm not going to change that because I know it's going to have a 6-speed. I just don't know if it's going to be a manual or a dual clutch. The next thing I want to do was the brakes. So let's see. If I make it smaller, does it change it? All right. So the 62 to 0 is the same. So I'm going to just keep reducing this until that number changes. Right there, it went red. That means at that point, it was no longer good. So 260 millimeters is the sweet spot. I'm going to do the same for the rears. Just going to keep reducing it until it says, no, stop reducing it. Because this is lightening the car. And the braking distance is exactly the same. So I have no reason not to. And these are getting small. All right, right there. And 2 pistons shouldn't make much of a difference. Yeah, it just makes it heavier if I do it in the back. 3 pistons on the front doesn't make a difference. I think 1 piston, yeah, that gets bad, so we're not going to do that. Carbon ceramic shouldn't make a difference in terms of actual stopping distance. That's just in terms of like brake fade, because basically no matter what you do to the brakes, like you can make them bigger if you want, but at this point I'm assuming you're limited by the contact you have with the road based on the rubber. So if I wanted to have a shorter stopping distance, I would need grippier rubber, and then you see right there it gets it better. So if I wanted to have semi-slicks on it, I could do that, but production cars don't have semi-slicks, so I'm not gonna put semi-slicks on it. And downforce, top speed is really limited with all this downforce I have on it. If I wanted to have top speed, I could just say kill the downforce. That's where something like where active wings could really come in handy, but I don't know if it'll help on the actual track. It might slow it down a lot without the downforce. I guess not, really? The no downforce helped it, or did I change something else that helped it more? See, this is one of the ones where I don't know for sure what the real car is set up like, so I can just mess around with that one all I want. Alright, forget downforce, that slows me down. Maybe, see, now it's kind of getting repetitive, right? Because I'm like, what about a little bit of downforce? Was that good? 52, that's even better, right? I think it was. I wasn't paying enough attention. Alright, reduce the wing angle. And test it. No, get that wing angle back. So the wing angle needs to stay up, or at least one of them. Let's do that. And I remember it was 52 this time. 62. Okay. No. No. Wait. So that means, where am I in the engine? I'm all thinking, and I'm like, wait, I'm in the engine. Okay. So if we had this one at 70 and this one at 100, what does that do? That's faster. Aha! I'm just shaving off seconds on a lap time here. It's like what they do in the manufacturers where they go to the ring, the Nürburgring, and they're just like, gotta get that good lap time. That's what I'm doing now, but with the Top Gear test track. I'm gonna go ahead and stop though, because doing something like this gets boring really fast. This is something I would be better off doing off camera once I'm done with the car, and I really think I am about done with it. I'm happy with the way it turned out. And for the question that you all may or may not be wondering, what car is it based off of? It's based off of the VW Golf R420 that's going to hopefully be coming out next year. That car sounds like an amazing car because it's getting 420 horsepower out of a 2-liter engine, and it's a Golf, and it's factory warranted. Like, you could get a Golf R or even a GTI and tune it up to that power, but you can't get a factory warranty when you do that, because usually they'll say, oh, you voided your warranty, go pay the money to us. But if you buy it from the factory like that, they can't void your warranty, because you could say, that's the way you gave it to me. And that's why I think that car is crazy, because that engine is just so ridiculously high-strung from the factory. It's insane. Like, the closest competitor for a mass production vehicle is the CLA 45 by Mercedes-Benz, I believe. And that thing makes, I think it was like 355 horsepower out of a 2-liter engine. And then the Golf, if it does come out, makes a lot more. It's just crazy like that. I could do the math. It's 65 horsepower more, maybe. Like, the numbers aren't for sure, it sounds like. It might be a R400, might be a R420. I figured let's go for the harder one and try to match the higher number. Whatever. Anyways, that'll do it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and name this car, actually. We can name it the WhyBeAre 400. 420. The WhyBeAre 420. Haha. Or would that be the trim? You know, I gotta figure out where I should name the model and the trim and all that. So this one could be like the, you know, I like bowling more than golf, so it could be the bowling and then the WhyBeAre 400, right? I don't know. I don't know, dude. I have no idea what I'm doing. Anyways, until next time, this is WhyBeAre. I'll see ya.